It's unbelievable just how weird of a game this was with those guys not scoring for Dallas. And then for Oklahoma City, they shot 35% in the restricted area. They could not score at the rim.
Welcome to the Mismatch. I'm Chris Vernon, and joining me as he does every Monday night from TheRinger.com is Kevin O'Connor, a.k.a. Kevin O'Bomber, Kevin O'Concert, Kevin O'Camera, Kevin O'Climber, Kevin O'Candyland, Kevin O'Conflict, Kevin O'Blazarian, Kevin!
Berto! How are you doing today, man? What's going on?
I'm great. We just watched a super exciting ending to a basketball game. Not a super exciting basketball game, but a super exciting ending to a basketball game where Oklahoma City made it a series. They are going to give us a pivotal Game 5, as they always say, where if it's 2-2 in a series, the winner of Game 5 goes on to win over 80% of the time. And so Oklahoma City made a series of this. I thought this is exactly the kind of game that Dallas would want to get this young Oklahoma City team into. The knockdown, drag out, you run a play, we run a play, half-court basketball game, and then everything just went to hell for the Mavericks down the stretch of that game. And over again, whether it was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or his teammates, Oklahoma City made plays. I was very impressed by your Oklahoma City Thunder tonight, Kevin, I must say. I was impressed.
They don't play like the second youngest team in the NBA. I thought, in this game, Cason Wallace in that fourth quarter, he made life hard on Kyrie Irving every single possession. Lou Dort, his defense against Luka, and OKC collectively. Chet Holmgren, that dude is so tough. He is so tough. The clutch free throws he had down the stretch as well. The clutch corner three he had. Chet on defense, the rim protection he provides. That dude is just tough. I felt like with OKC, you did see in this game, Giddey plays only 12 minutes. He starts the game. He doesn't start the second half. But as soon as Daigneault went to that lineup without him in there in the fourth quarter, I felt like that is the formula for them moving forward in the series. And ultimately, though, Luka 6 for 20 in the game, Kyrie 4 for 11 in the game. It's unbelievable just how weird of a game this was with those guys not scoring for Dallas. And then for Oklahoma City, they shot 35% in the restricted area. They could not score at the rim. They shot 26% from three. They won the game from the mid-range and from the free throw line because Dallas couldn't make their free throws, but it was just a weird game overall on both sides. Like OKC could not make a layup, dude.
I don't think they had a restricted area bucket until the end of the game when Jalen Williams had those two in a row. One where Lively does not cut off baseline on this, this fumbled ball in the corner and allows Jalen Williams to just drive past him for a dunk. And then obviously the other drive by Williams. But I believe those are the only two restricted area buckets that they had. And to your point, they did not hit threes. They made hay on the free throw line. They only missed one free throw, and Dallas is just going to be kicking themselves over and over again because they were a debacle all the way to the end from the free throw line. And then in the irony of ironies, they get this call against Luka, which is super questionable. But then we get a litany of ball don't lie chants, from people on social media as he misses the first, which would have tied the game if he makes both those free throws. And then when they need to miss at the end, PJ Washington makes it. It's like you've been missing free throws all night, and now the one you need to miss, you've needed to make them the entire game, you dumbasses, and now you don't need to make it, and you do. Figure that out. But
so weird.
They were getting, Oklahoma City was getting crushed on the boards early, and they remedied that. They started fighting.
Up, dude.
They did. They started toughening up. They started making the extra plays, and then all the while, look, I know Luka's one of the greatest players on earth, but my God, he is so perpetually aggrieved. And I think I'm using. Let me make sure I'm going to use this word correctly. Let me look this up real quick. Okay, agree. Okay, I got it. Aggrieved, unhappy, and angry because of unfair treatment. That is exactly what I meant. Literally, exactly what I meant.
Look at you. You're a wordsmith.
Perpetually aggrieved. That's what I meant.
Great job.
Unhappy.
You should be a writer. Why don't you write for theringer.com, Chris, huh?
Unhappy and angry because of unfair treatment. I mean, it's so joyless, honestly. And I just feel like it was sucking the life out of everything. It's like every play, we're playing this half-court basketball game, and I'm a Luka fan. The guy is so talented, but good grief. Even when he makes a shot, he's pissed about it. I can't take it. Like, bro, can you please act like you're having some modicum of fun playing basketball? And then he sucked. Luka was terrible. He was terrible in this game. God, he was throwing the ball everywhere. Couldn't make any shots. Again,
he had more turnovers than made shots. He had 7 turnovers, 6 makes.
And how about this for irony? There's like less than 4 minutes left in the game, and they're going back and forth. Everything's nip tuck, and then they get a whistle on the outside. He throws up like a 35-foot 3-pointer after the whistle, and it went in. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, right? Now you make it. It's like it was just they just could not score. They couldn't score. A couple of them were good shots that didn't go down. You had Kyrie a drive, it's like a 4-footer floater. I mean, he's making that shot 98 out of 100 times, but doesn't matter if you make it at 98 out of 100. It's one of the 2 he'd miss. And obviously, that Oklahoma City defense down the stretch was also very, very good. Awesome. Dallas missed some shots they should have, but I mean, outside of Luka throwing a couple lobs, getting to the line a couple times.
They didn't do much. I mean, this all really started, I feel like, with Lou Dort's defense on Luka.
For sure.
And then Case and Wallace's defense on Kyrie Irving.
You can tell Dort's under his skin.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he easily, like every single bump, you talk about Luka looking perpetually aggrieved.
Yes.
Every time Lou Dort bumps him, he looks like he's pissed off.
Well, but and then on the other end, Gilgeous-Alexander's taking over the game.
Yes.
I mean, he's 6 minutes of MVP level basketball. God, he made a shot over the basket from the side. He made a step back.
Much
he was
better than game 3, when I thought he took some poor shots down the stretch in game 3. He had the shot with 18 seconds left on the shot clock, a heavily contested step back against Derek Lively instead of driving when there's no rim protection inside. But I felt like he took smarter shots within the flow of the offense tonight, and he still took over individually with ISOs and all that as well, but he's picking on mismatches. I thought he picked his spots in a really smart manner, and the shot that he missed down the stretch was halfway down.
Oh, I know.
That sidestep jumper, that was probably over halfway down. I can't believe it rimmed out.
Yeah, and that would have been a dagger, but even those other possessions down the stretch, the ball was in his hands almost every possession. The one
right decision every time.
The one it was not was that miserable Jalen Williams 3.
What happened there? What happened with that one?
That was.
I guess it doesn't matter. They win the game, but boy, they were more worried about the clock than getting a good shot, which is what happened every time SGA had the ball in his hands, passing or scoring.
And what he was doing is, and this is the way the NBA is played now, which is, I'm going in. And, so many times these coaches are talking about paint touch, paint touch, paint touch, paint touch, because that's what will collapse the defense. And he's a master at doing this. And twice, not just the shots that he made, twice in absolute crunch time, paint touch, kick out, Dort nails a 3.
Mm-hmm.
Paint touch, kick out, Chet nails a 3. So while they had not been making a bunch of threes throughout the game, when it mattered most, they got what they needed on offense, and and look, it's a make or miss league, but he generates those open shots for his teammates. Meanwhile, there sure wasn't much being generated on the other side. and that's what you're counting on. There's a couple of those lobs that Luka threw. Other than that, you can't remember, a bunch of these like collapsed defense, great look shots that just didn't go down.
Now, one thing Dallas has relied on in this series is PJ Washington, who we talked about earlier in the week, and I've been high on him for years. I like PJ Washington a lot. However, 5 of 11 from 3 tonight, 5 of 12 in game 3, 7 of 11 in game 2, 2 of 3 in game 1. That has been very, very helpful for Dallas's offense with him getting sagged off. OKC really not worried about him from 3. I wonder at some point, is he going to have a night where he kind of regresses to the mean? Like, can he shoot 50% from 3 throughout the entire series when the Mavericks are relying on him so much? I mean, 11, 12, 11 attempts in the last 3 games from 3 is a lot from PJ Washington. Is he going to have a game where OKC continues playing him the same way and he ends up going 2 for 10? And I just think that's something in the back of my mind here where I love PJ Washington, but can PJ Washington do this for the entire series? They need it from somebody else in here. I mean, you still need your big banger Luka game, and he's not 100%. You might need it from Kyrie Irving, but they're doing a great job defending him, making life hard on him. It can't always be PJ Washington bail out 3-pointers.
I got you, but a lot of those are just practice threes.
Oh yeah, there's open threes. He's a 39% guy on wide open threes in his career. That's good.
And I lived the Rui Hachimura experience last year. It happens. Right?
Yeah, no, it does. It does.
The guy that you just let shoot open threes can sometimes just do it, and sometimes he can even do it in a larger sample because he's open. You ever show up? Anybody that ever shows up early to a NBA game, go stand out there and watch. And I remember when when my son was very little, we went out. We were there early before a game, watching guys warm up, and we watched Tyler Zeller make like 23s in a row. And I was just so you understand, like, those are the guys that people say that guy's a bum or that guy shouldn't be in the league or whatever. Like, that's what an NBA player looks like when he could just stand out there, catch a pass, and knock it down.
For sure.
Whatever he wants to do. I mean, these guys they're unbelievable.
We saw that at the NBA draft combine today with the shooting drills. It's like,
that's right.
Zach Edey out there hitting movement threes, Donovan Clingan hitting threes, and it's like it gives you hope that these guys can end up becoming shooters, but it's big difference doing that in games than it is actually in an open practice court. But ultimately, though, for Dallas, like I bring up PJ Washington because I said this to you after last round. Luka is clearly limited. 6 of 20 tonight. I know he's frustrated, but he's shooting 39% from the field in the series, only 31% from 3 in the series. Now for the entire playoffs, 41% from the field, 26% from 3. These are incredibly low numbers for Luka, the worst he's ever had in his postseason history, some of the worst numbers he's ever had in his entire career. He's limited. And for Dallas here, unless he can get right, like we saw with Jamal Murray in the Denver-Minnesota series, Jamal Murray looks like he has a much better, speed. He looks like he's much more agile out there creating. Luka clearly is not 100% right now, and I don't feel good about Dallas's odds because of that reason. Felt that way before the series. Feel that way even more now. The way these first 4 games have gone.
I know, but he does this crap because you remember the last time we talked like this, he came out, he had 16 points in the first quarter.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
and he made all his threes.
Huge, what was it, game 5 against the Clippers?
And it was like, amazing. And he does it even within the course of a game.
But that game 5 against the Clippers is really his only Luka level game of the postseason. That's it.
I agree. And here's the deal. A lot of what I thought about this series and what would happen in this series was based upon not only the older, more veteran team, but just that history tells us the team with the best player usually comes out of this deal in the series. And right now, there's no question the best player is not Luka. That would have been my wrong prediction, which is I thought Luka Doncic would be the best player on the floor in this series. even in a series that included SGA. And truth be told, SGA's been the best player. SGA, and this is a perfect example because in the last 6 minutes of that game, SGA made the shots and set up his teammates, and Luka didn't. End of story. And that's, again, you're in a bucket game. Now it's all right. Who's going to make this happen? And my bet would have been on Luka. And over again, that was not the right bet. I mean, SGA, that was superstar stuff for sure. They were dead. They were down 8 in the fourth and then went on that 24-11 run.
Crazy.
You know?
Crazy. And started on defense and SGA finished it on offense.
No,
man.
And make some
awesome.
If you just made some free throws, you wouldn't be in this position. Honestly, if they would have just made their free throws, they win it and they're dominating the series. They're up 3-1. Now, they better win 5. They better win 5. Because I think this is one of those where, you know, we've seen so far kind of a back and forth between these. These teams are getting to know each other even better. These teams are making better decisions than they made earlier in the season. Kid went back to Lively quicker than maybe he would have earlier in the series, and maybe not even soon enough. The Lively minutes have been much better than the Gafford minutes, despite the fact that Lively can't seem to make a 1-foot shot.
Yeah,
but
I mean, Bolt, I thought Gafford was pretty good tonight.
He was.
Too. Like his rim protection was really good. Lively's was as well. They put a lid on the rim, both of those guys. But Lively just feels more vibrant and active out there on the floor. Yeah,
yeah, and it's certainly great rim protection. Even if it doesn't show up with blocks, he's certainly stopping guys from driving to the basket. And then on the other side, less giddy. You know what I mean?
12 minutes tonight.
Right.
And barely played in the second half at all.
Going into this game, Kevin, his net rating per 100 possessions, they were getting beat by 30 points with Josh Giddey on the floor. I mean, that's so extreme.
Yeah,
it's
he's been
in what is a close. It's a 2-2 series.
Giddey's been a complete non-factor as a shooter. He's been a complete non-factor as a finisher at the basket. Defensively, he hasn't been an additive presence. And I think with Giddey, the way Dallas is defending him, you talk about how SGA is creating and shining out there on the floor as a shot creator. They're clogging the paint with Giddey's out there. You're seeing far better spacing, driving lanes for Oklahoma City when it's either Isaiah Joe or Cason Wallace or Aaron Wiggins out there. Even with Kenrich Williams, for that matter, I think their spacing is better. Giddey moving forward in the series, I think Daigneault showed the formula in that second half. He had Giddey come off the bench. He had him play some limited minutes. He went away from him when it mattered in the fourth quarter, but he gave it a shot in the third quarter. Maybe that's what you do in game 5. Maybe you start Wallace or you start Isaiah Joe and you have Giddey come off the bench and see if he has it from 3. Because it's not as if Giddey hasn't had stretches this year where he's made those open practice shots. Defenses going back to the beginning of the season would sag off of him and force him to shoot. There were stretches he made over 40% of his threes. And if Oklahoma City can have him on a night where he does that, it creates issues for Dallas if Giddey's hot from 3. So I think benching him entirely might be a bit extreme because of the connective passing and the size he provides. But you got to have a really short leash for Josh Giddey. And I thought Daigneault did a good job tonight with that and going to the other players.
You feeling good about your pick still? I mean, look,
I feel great about it.
It's best 2 out of 3 and 2 are in Oklahoma City. If I'm being honest, look, Dallas had to win this game. They're up by 8. And so I don't feel great about it, but I've got Dallas in 6, so they got to go win this game in Oklahoma City. Then they got to turn around and win the home game in Dallas. But
I just don't feel good about Luka, Chris. I don't. I think.
Why would you?
But I think what's going to happen is after Dallas's playoff run is over in a couple days or in a week, however long it'll be until they lose to Oklahoma City, stories will come out about what's actually wrong with Luka.
Oh, it's his knee.
We know it's his knee. He's reaching for his knee, but is there like a surgery needed? I mean, how severe is this injury? What's he playing through right now?
It might be a meniscus, honestly.
It could be. He is severely limited out there. He just doesn't have the same burst. I don't think it's affecting him with the range on his jumper.
Well, and he's also, like as I've said, he's irritable.
Oh, for sure.
All the time.
Yeah, he's like back in some bad old habits when he was
no
younger.
Swagger and irritable.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's like the aged guy that like can't be what he wants to be. And so he's taking it out on everyone.
Bingo. 100%.
Right.
That's exactly what it's like watching him play. It's like what he wants to do and he knows he can do, what he has done. He's been amazing in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's getting to him, the fact he can't do that. Just
maybe he's just honoring Klay Thompson.
just to put some numbers behind this real quick, Chris. His first 3 playoff runs, so this is 28 games. Luka had a true shooting percentage of 58%. And in those 3 playoff runs, he averaged 31 points, 35.7 points, 31.7 points. This year with Dallas, he's averaging only 27 points with a true shooting of 51%. So efficiency has fallen off. Volume has fallen off. The turnovers are up. The complaining is up. The grabbing at the knee is up. Luka's not right.
So
showing up in the numbers, it's showing up in the eye test. Like it's pretty clear something is seriously affecting him now.
So imagine you feel like absolute crap, and then every time you look up, Lou Dort is 1 centimeter from your face with his hot breath.
I know, Lou Dort probably doesn't even brush his teeth before.
Guaranteed he doesn't. He seems exactly like the kind of guy that intentionally eats hot Cheetos right before he's about to guard you. Right, doesn't he? Just to piss you off even more. I think that's probably, or some Cool Ranch Doritos or something. Something that like you could smell immediately. And maybe that's what's throwing off Luka so much. I don't know. The first game tonight was one of those where every once in a while we would get teased by Cleveland, like, oh, are they going to make this a game? No, they're not going to make this a game. Oh, are they going to? Here's a nice litlittle 8-0 run, nice little 12-0 run.
A little bit of a tease tonight. A little tease.
Maybe Celtics are getting a little lax. And then at the end, I was like, holy crap, what is this?
It turned into a big tease.
It really did. Because next thing you know, it's like, what? This is a 4-point game? How? How is this a 4-point game? Look, I give JB Bickerstaff and his squad all kinds of credit because Lord knows they are up against it like no other without Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen. And Boston had their 2 guys show up. Tatum made big plays. Jaylen Brown made big plays down the stretch. Both of those guys were able to make plays. And so I know there's probably going to be a lot of discontent from Celtics fans that are watching it, knowing as smart basketball fans, that is not good enough. It is good enough against this Cleveland team that has no chance, right? As they are currently, as they're currently.
They don't have Donovan Mitchell, their best perimeter player. They don't have Jared Allen.
And what you want is the Celtics to beat them down.
Yeah. And like they did the Heat.
Correct. Right.
Yeah. And ultimately though, for Boston, you win the game, you're up 3-1, you're going to advance. This has been an easy path so far, and it should be an easy path next round as well with a depleted Knicks team, a tired Knicks team, or a young Pacers team. It should be. But you're right. Like tonight, Tatum, Brown, they won that game for Boston. They played well together. They played well individually. To me, the big takeaway from tonight, like we could talk about all the good things Boston did tonight if we want to, but I feel like it almost doesn't matter in some ways. It's about projecting forward in the playoffs, next round, and then in the potential finals matchup, whoever it will be. Al Horford, he is not what he was even earlier in the season. Cleveland is getting him into actions over and over. Boston is doing what they can to hide him. And I think for the Celtics at some point in this series or moving forward in the playoffs, I wonder if we'll see those minutes dwindle. Kristaps Porzingis, the need for him is increasing even more to win the finals, to actually be the team to hoist the Larry O'Brien trophy, because Al Horford looks like a diminished version of himself, because not only is he getting attacked on defense and targeted on defense because he's slower footed now than he was before, he's also just not making shots to help compensate for that, which you need from him. So I wonder with Boston, what happens with Al Horford moving forward in the playoffs?
I'm not sure that there's, and we talked about this. It's like, what happens if Porzingis misses time? They don't have a lot of bigs. And I went and looked, and when I was looking at everybody's net rating scores, because I was trying to find out like of bench guys, and Pritchard's been good. Hauser has got a huge net rating. The only guy with a negative net rating that's gotten minutes for the Celtics is Cornette, who's the other guy you would theoretically put in. He's the only guy that they have lost while he's on the court on average.
Xavier Tillman, though, too. Your former guy in Memphis. I do wonder.
Hasn't played, really.
No, he really hasn't played, but Tillman kind of brings that beef and perimeter quickness as a big that I wonder, could we at some point see Missoula go to that? The difference is that Horford can, in theory, space. He hasn't effectively been doing that against Cleveland or last round against Miami, but Tillman doesn't space the floor. He's a non-threat from three at all. Horford at least can theoretically get hot. I wonder though if we'll at some point see a little bit more Tillman, but it's tough, man. Like Horford like it has been so good for so long. You still want to trust that guy, and then maybe when Porzingis does come back, Horford's playing fewer minutes. He becomes more effective without having to stretch out the 30 ish minutes per game. But it's just something I'm really keeping an eye on with Boston right now when it comes to projecting next round against Brunson or Halliburton, and then in the finals against a long list of potential elite perimeter creators, whether it's Jamal Murray or Anthony Edwards or OKC SGA, or if it is Dallas, Luka, Kyrie. Like, there's a lot of guys who could exploit that more than any of these Eastern Conference teams are.
The size thing becomes much more relevant to me against the Knicks than it does against the Pacers. That goes without saying, right? Just simply because the Pacers are willing to play that small ball stuff, fly up and down the court. Let's play, hey, you guys want to play 140 to 130? Because that's what we'd love to do, And whereas the Knicks are trying to, they're trying to have the ball come off the rim and 5 torpedoes flying at the rim to grab an offensive rebound. And so you certainly need a little more size for the Knicks. But I don't know if the Knicks are going to be able to get out of this. This just ridiculous amount of injuries seemingly is really caught up to them. I mean, the Anunoby one is one that you and I talked about after our last podcast, and I told you, I was like, that one is that one is a killer. It is an absolute killer. To that point, in 31 games since OG Anunoby played as a Knick, including the playoffs, they're 26-5. 26-5 with Anunoby playing. The Knicks, in the 30 games that OG Anunoby has missed, are 13-17. They're not even 500. He is this connective tissue for that team. He really is. And it obviously stands out so great because he also gives you 40-something minutes. And they don't have anybody to go to. I told you I went through and looked at all these net ratings. The net ratings for, like, one of the things that super stands out in this is the depth and the lack of depth, which they're now called into using because, no Randall, no Mitchell Robinson anymore, which hurts. No Bogdanovich, hurts badly. No Anunoby. And so now you're down to it. And you look at the net ratings of anybody else he's trying to play. Deuce McBride, -22 per 100 possessions. Precious Achiuwa, -30 per 100 possessions. Alec Burks, -16.3 per 100 possessions. I mean, there's nobody to play, Kev. These guys are getting smoked just with any of them out on the court. With any of them, they're getting crushed. No wonder he plays everybody 48 minutes. He puts one of these guys out there and they get smoked. Meanwhile, on the other side, this tells the story to me. Ben Shepherd. Man, I've already issued my apology. Ben Shepherd plus 33 per 100 possessions.
So good off the bench for Indiana. It's crazy because he was not like usually like the rookies we're talking about, like Cason Wallace was great all season for Oklahoma City. Ben Shepherd was okay.
He shot less than 40% from the field.
He was okay, but he is elevating his play in a really significant way for the Pacers.
Okay, so how about this? Shepherd, plus 33 per 100 possessions. McConnell, plus 16 per 100 possessions. Toppin, plus 7 per 100 possessions. I mean, like, the guys coming off Indiana's bench are big, big positives. The guys coming off of the Knicks benches are, like, devastating negatives. Yeah. And I mean, is that going to solve itself?
I mean, I think the reason why the bench disparity is especially so important in this series between the Knicks and the Pacers, we're seeing Jalen Brunson clearly limited by his ankle injury. In the 2 games since he hurt it at the end of game 2, he was 10 of 26 in game 3, 6 of 17 in game 4, and he's front rimming everything. He's 2 of 11 from 3-point range, 3 of 9 from mid range, 5 of 16 in the paint floater range. He's 6 of 7 at the rim, but he's not even getting to the rim as often as he did prior. He doesn't have the burst. He doesn't have the elevation on his jumper. Everything's front rimming. If Brunson is not playing at the ridiculous top 5 level that he was prior to this ankle injury for weeks for the Knicks, I mean, like, they don't have the bodies. They don't have the talent behind him to help compensate for that. They just don't.
The good thing was they were getting their ass kicked so bad that they were able to sit those guys. Because they're playing 48. Look, at some point, playing 48 minutes every 2 days was going to catch up. And it really turned into a day and a half because they played Sunday at 2 o'clock, right? Yeah. So they didn't even have that. So at least they were able to shut those guys down early. And then they're going to have a game 5 at Madison Square Garden. That team still has a crazy amount of heart. They still got to be favored in this thing. But you saw they had dead legs on Sunday. I mean, they're 7 for 37 from 3. And
they got ran out, man.
Yeah, they got ran out.
Like, that Pacers team is not the opponent you want to face if you want to play your guys for 45 to 48 minutes per game. Like, they run so fast, they work you hard every single possession,
and
it was bound for them to get tired at some point.
Well, and they had run themselves into the ground in the last game, and they were a Nemhard 3 from being up 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're gonna have to fight for their lives, right? Yep. They got to win. They got to win 2 of the next 3. Now, luckily, they're going to have it in front of that raucous Madison Square Garden crowd. And so figure they'll still be able to get it done, but that certainly looked bleak on Sunday. And it was just such an outlier. They play close games. That's what they do. And that seemed like an extreme outlier.
Do you think Tyrese Halliburton has found himself again? Because
no, I don't trust it.
Well, okay. So 34 points in game 2 on 19 shots, 35 points on 26 shots in game 3, 20 points on 15 shots in game 4, far more efficient. He's nailing his threes. He's hit nearly 50% of them in games 2, 3, and 4. You don't buy it.
I just don't trust it yet.
Okay. So you need to see it one more time.
Yep.
Or 2 more times? Or just one more time will be enough for you?
Well, they need 2 more.
Well, they need 2 more.
He needs to be the best player. I mean, there was a lot of, hey, they need to get TJ McConnell back in there. I mean, I've watched TJ McConnell save their ass. I'm saying the same.
About Nemhard, though, more than
I'm saying.
Halliburton.
I got you, but also McConnell was the one that was getting it done in these fourth quarters the same way we watched Gilgeous-Alexander tonight. Mm-hmm. That's when I need Halliburton being the one getting it done.
Which team do you, in a series against the Celtics, do the Pacers or the Knicks have a better chance?
I mean, you could combine them and probably still lose.
Okay.
So I guess I'd say the Knicks, though.
Even though they have all those guys out, Brunson injury with the ankle, no Randall, OG, you'd still pick the Knicks.
Do you mean to be a better competition?
Yeah, you'd still pick the Knicks.
I think the Pacers might win one game. I think the Knicks might win two. Just by being dogs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Josh Hart still gets friggin' 17 rebounds in these games. And Hartenstein. And I mean, again, they're good enough for a couple of... And I think that Brunson's the best player left. That's not a Celtic.
Yeah, and unless that ankle injury is actually going to be continuing to
he's going to come back in Game 5.
I don't know. I hope so.
I hope we
see Brunson look healthy, but boy, he does not look like the same. He's not jumping as high. He's not elevating, front rimming everything. I don't know.
I got you, but look, you know who else was left for dead? Jamal Murray.
Yeah, man, he was, and Jamal Murray's looking like his full self again.
Well, you brought up a term earlier in the show, regression to the mean. There was part of me when I was watching Minnesota and Denver play out in that game last night where, and I almost tweeted about this, but I didn't want to get into any kind of discussions. Those first two games, it looked, and I said this on the show 1,000 times. Let me see Game 3. Me and you have been doing this pod long enough to where I remember burying the Nuggets twice.
In the bubble.
We've buried them. Yeah, the Utah and the Clippers.
Yep, down 3-1 in both series.
And so it was like, I don't want to bury them. They still have the 3-time MVP. Let me see Game 3. I don't feel great about it. It looks bleak right now. But also, you got to give these guys their respect. They've been in these bad spots before where it seemed like they were really up against it. And so, obviously, they were able to get things done in those two games in Minnesota. And now Minnesota's up against it because the next 2 out of 3 are in Denver. I thought, as I was watching that play out, Minnesota made everything, or a lot of shots, in those first couple of games. And we had said, after those 2 games, they play 6 games in the playoffs. They had the number 1 offense by a wide margin in the NBA. 16 teams make the playoffs. 15 had their effective field goal percentage go down as a team. Theirs went up. It was unheard of what was happening. They were averaging it was like over 120 per 100 possessions. It's something crazy through 6 games. And the whole season, they've been the best defensive team by a wide margin, but a decidedly mediocre offensive team. And so as I was watching it last night, I was like, is this some hellacious regression to the mean that's going on here? Because we had a much bigger sample size telling us that they were this kind of offensive team than we do the offensive team that performed in those first 6 playoff games we saw. And there's part of me that thinks that might be so, because while Anthony Edwards is spectacular, the rest of them, who else do you want to call out? And most importantly, the same way I just talked about New York and Indiana's bench, boy, it is a bleak story going on with what I thought was a huge advantage for Minnesota. We're now through 4 games. Denver, Holiday, plus 26.5 net rating. Christian Brown, plus 13. Reggie Jackson, plus 23 per 100 possessions. On the other side, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, minus 23 per 100 possessions. Naz Reid, 6th man of the year, minus 18 per 100 possessions. Kyle Anderson, minus 19 per 100 possessions. It's like Denver flipped this thing, and what we thought was an advantage for Minnesota has not only not been an advantage, it's been a friggin' disaster. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, for the Denver side of things, you got Justin Holiday. He's made 10 of 16 3-pointers in this entire series so far. He's been Ray Allen out there for the Nuggets coming off the bench. And, Christian Brown going to him, kind of condensing the bench minutes. They're not playing Peyton Watson anymore. It's really just Jackson, Brown, and Holiday. Christian Brown's been really, really good for them defensively, playing well on the perimeter. And then he hit, 2 threes in the consecutive games. So, I think for the Minnesota side of things, it's not just the bench guys either. Jaden McDaniels hasn't scored consistently. Karl Anthony Towns, 5 of 18 in that game 4. He was absolutely horrible.
Oh my God.
Terrible.
How bad was he?
Oh my God. He was the worst version of Cat that Wolves fans have had nightmares about. It was that guy. There was a quote. Anthony Edwards said something after game 4 about Jokic where he said, I'm paraphrasing here, he has the ball in his hands the whole game. And he's the best player in the world. And I was just thinking about that. And I was thinking, I wonder if Anthony Edwards went back to bed, that night. He gets home, he puts his head on the pillow, and he's like, man, I had 44 points, only 25 shots. I got to be at 30, 35 shots in the game. I can't be letting Cat go 5 for 18 out there. I got to take over. I just wonder if he thought about himself compared to what Jokic did with the usage, with the touches, with the responsibility, and said, I can do more for my team, because I think he can.
I think the answer is the other guys being good.
Yeah, but don't
getting
you feel
them involved.
But don't you feel like Cat?
Because he can't give you anything more.
Why not? Why couldn't Edwards have taken 10 more shots in that game?
What I'm saying, Kevin, 44 is enough.
It should be enough, but
that's enough.
It should be enough, but it wasn't enough. Sometimes you need 50. Sometimes you need 60. For a guy being compared to Michael Jordan.
I got it, but you got to have a bench advantage with what you've got.
I feel you completely, but it's a lot to ask Kyle Anderson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Naz Reid to be the difference makers against the defending champions. What I'm saying is,
no, it's not. Not when the difference makers on the other side are Christian Brown and Reggie friggin' Jackson.
I understand,
and Justin Holiday.
I understand, but what I'm asking about is the guy who is playing the best basketball of his entire life right now. Can he give even more? Can Anthony Edwards tap into an even higher level? Can he shoot more? Can he create more? Because he's doing a lot already. He's doing more than you can even ask from him at this point. All I'm saying is for a guy getting compared to Michael Jordan right now, Jordan time and time again in the playoffs, look at his numbers back in the 90s and in the 80s for that matter. There were so many times he was over 30 shots in a game. Edwards has not taken over 30 shots in a game once this playoffs. Against the defending champions, he may have to, is Kevin, my only point.
The answer was not Michael Jordan scoring more. The answer was Michael Jordan became what Michael Jordan became by making his teammates better. That's when he became that guy. That's when he became the GOAT. That's when he won 6 championships. It's by making his teammates better. He was scoring 63 in Boston Garden. He was going heads up with the Pistons and Dominique Wilkins and doing it all himself. And he came out a loser.
Of course.
The trick is and that's exactly what Jokic has done. He knows that all of these guys have to be good to make it work. It's not about me scoring more than 44. It might even mean me scoring less.
But Chris, I understand your point, but like I said, I looked this up earlier today. Game 4, 93 finals, Jordan has 37 shots, 55 points. They get the win. In that same series in 93, game 2 against the Suns, 36 shots, 42 points in the game. He also has 9 assists in the game. I know the 63 points against Boston in a loss is the one everybody talks about, where he also had 41 points in that game. But my only point is it's not like Jordan didn't have a bunch of games where he took over 30 shots. He had in his career 38 games in his playoff career taking 30 or more shots. All I'm saying is that with Edwards, I wonder, this is all I'm asking, I wonder if he went home that night thinking about his comments about Jokic, how he has the ball in his hands every single play, and thought to himself, I can do even more. I can provide my team even more than I already am right now when I look like the best player on the court sometimes. All I wonder if is he thought that when he went home that night, and I wonder if we could see that at some point in the remainder of the series. Because you're right. I agree with you. Jordan didn't win titles until his teammates around him were better, until Jordan became an all-defensive player, until he proved as a playmaker, and he became the GOAT in the 90s when he did that, when his team improved around him and he got better as an all-around player. But Anthony Edwards, there's still some nights where Jordan had to take 35 shots in order to lead his team to victory. All I wonder is, will that moment come for Anthony Edwards in this series? Because I believe he's capable with the way he's performing right now. He is dominating in every facet of the game. I think Anthony Edwards knows it, and I think we're going to see that from him, including possibly even in Game 5.
Well, you have seen certainly a big difference in that Minnesota team from what we saw in Denver. And as helpless as it looked for Denver coming out of that, it certainly doesn't look good for Minnesota right now. And so if you're right, the best timing ever would be in the pivotal Game 5 because, look, they have to win 5, Kevin. They're not winning 6 and 7.
Yeah,
they're not winning those back-to-back.
Hard to fathom.
They're not winning 6 and 7. If Minnesota's going to win the series, whoever wins Game 5 is winning that series. I mean, look, I know that's easy to say because 83% of the time that has been true over the course of NBA history. But in this one in particular, because we're talking about having to play that game in Denver, I know they won twice on the road already. I wouldn't play with that again. I wouldn't count on that. I wouldn't count on that. Right?
No doubt about it.
I wouldn't count on that one.
Of course, Chris. And I think one of your points earlier in the series after the Game 2 win Minnesota had when Gobert was out for the birth of his kid, you said after that how maybe Denver was preparing for a series, a game against Rudy Gobert, and then boom, out of nowhere, he's not playing. Yep. I think Games 3 and 4, with the way in which Denver has played against Rudy Gobert, has shown that potentially to be exactly the case, because they have done a really good job at moving Aaron Gordon all around the floor. Sometimes he's in the corner from 3, sometimes he's in the dunker spot. He's bringing the ball up the floor a lot more often himself as well. They're trying to get Gobert switched onto Jokic because Minnesota wants Gobert and help. They want him as the guy roaming off ball, helping on everything at the basket, just deterring players from driving. Instead, what they're trying to do on the Denver side is to get Gobert directly involved with Jokic. And it doesn't matter who you are. There's no stopping Jokic. So they're taking Gobert out of what Minnesota wants him to be doing. And it's disturbing, I think, a little bit of that tenacious defense we saw in Games 1 and 2, where they weren't doing this quite as much. So it's not just Murray going off, but Denver's done a good job game planning there too.
And Gobert has to be unbelievable defensively because he is useless offensively.
I mean, got the chair pulled out from him against the
They just won't even throw it. How many times does he set the screen and then run to the basket and no one even looks at him? Like, nobody.
That's what made the Conley lob to Gobert late in that fourth quarter so shocking. It was like, whoa, they finally found Rudy on a lob.
He's the only one that has a connection with him. And obviously that goes back to Utah as well. But it's very odd. It's very odd. Like, he sets those high screens and dives to the basket, and I don't know if they think he's going to fumble the ball or if he's just not going to finish, but I mean, it's like, what is the point of this? Like, I know he's not going to take a jumper, but I mean, geez, just lob it up and let him finish some of these lobs or something. Like, I don't get it. And you're right about the Gordon thing. And the other thing is, look, if Aaron Gordon's going to shoot 95% from the field, that they even said it in their press conference, like, we just got to live with that.
Oh, with Anthony Edwards, as he was getting away, he stood up and looked at him. He's like, yeah.
I bet he is.
I know, so good.
I mean, that's exactly what like, it's the Justin Holidays and the Aaron Gordons of the world that in many times decide this crap.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, I don't think we talked enough about Jokic, but we talked about how this was kind of a legacy stretch for him after going down 2-0 to Minnesota, losing 2 home games, and then he's won both on the road against Minnesota. He's been dominant in both those games. He's aced the tests.
He's the best player on earth.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he's shown that, and I think defensively he's been tremendous. He's playing emotional out there, leading his teammates, barking at them. Clearly a guy who wants to win. Did you see the clip posted on social media of him wasting a minute of game time in the fourth quarter?
Yes.
Kind of like after Minnesota he'd like fumble the ball a little bit, before inbounding it. It's the dude clearly loves winning above everything else. And that's what matters most is the love for winning. And Jokic wants it. I thought he was sensational in games 3 and 4.
Before this series, I told you, I said, I think this is the West Finals. The only thing I thought that could stand in the way of that was Luka Doncic. But now that we've seen Luka, and it's a bridge too far to me for that Oklahoma City team. But I'm going to take it a little step further. Kevin, is it possible? We're about to watch the pivotal Game 5 between those teams. Is it possible, in your mind, that Minnesota-Denver is actually the NBA Finals?
Oh, yeah. The winner of this series will win the finals.
You believe that?
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
I wouldn't.
Look. Well, I guess here's the deal too. We got to see how the way this plays out. Like everybody's gotten hurt. Whoever's going to be, whoever's going to be healthy at the end. We saw a hobbled Jamal Murray and they looked like hell, right? So you're always an ankle turn away on any of these teams. We saw OG Anunoby went out, and it's like devastating for the Knicks. So you're always one, and we still got a month of basketball left.
No doubt about it, man. I mean,
but it does feel that way.
Saying that assumes, they stay kind of status quo.
Well, because they're the two healthy teams.
Yeah,
they are.
I still think
I think they're the only healthy. Oklahoma City's healthy.
I still think Oklahoma City would make it competitive, though. I do. I have a lot of belief.
They got to get past Dallas first.
I know. I just got a lot of belief in that team.
I know you do.
Mm-hmm.
I know you do. All right. Last thing, real quick. Lottery was yesterday. Meh.
Why meh?
Oh, come on.
Why meh? The Hawks moved up from 10-1. The Rockets moved up from 9-3. Why meh? Those are crazy results.
What is exciting about that?
I mean, the fact that the Hawks are entering an offseason in which Trae Young could demand
so they could get Alex Sarr? Woohoo!
I mean, but I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting to see what they're going to do now. They now have more options than they did before. Yes, this draft doesn't have a clear-cut star. It doesn't have a clear-cut franchise changer. It's better to be at number 1 than number 10. It's better to be at 3 than it is at number 9. Period. It just is.
It certainly is for the asset of it, but it might not be. But it might not be for the player of it.
Well, that's why you got to get it right. Of course.
I mean, right. As the GM once said, right? It's not where you draft; it's who you draft.
Of course,
right.
That goes without saying.
And it just seems like this is so. This is one of the very rare drafts where the 12th pick could be the best player in the draft, or maybe obviously we've had better drafts than this, where the 15th player ends up being the best player in the draft, or the 12th player ends up being the best player in the draft.
Yeah, but Chris,
this could be what? How far down your list could you go? 7 or 8 before you would say there's no chance that guy is the best player in this draft?
I'd say like 7, 8, or 9, something like
Probably,
that.
Right?
It's pretty. It hasn't been like that since 2013.
Right.
That's the year there was Anthony Bennett goes number 1. There will be busts in this year's class, but I just think it's ridiculous how people talk about this as becoming one of the worst draft classes ever, or the worst draft class ever. We just got done talking about a ton of role players who are swinging series in either direction. This is a role player draft. There's a ton of guys who are going to be really good competitive role players early in their careers, who are going to be contributing on rookie contracts, that are going to be helping teams, that could end up exceeding expectations in their careers because everybody's on a different trajectory. So I think when we talk about this year's class, it's fair to say it sucks in terms of clear star power, but I think it's actually quite strong when it comes to the role players who can contribute towards winning for their teams. So whatever you want to label it, with that in mind, you can do whatever you want.
You know what?
That's true for the listeners. It's true for you. But like it's a strong role player draft.
Perfect for me, right? This is right up my alley for my guys that will not suck, because this is the perfect draft to just take a guy that you are for sure will not suck, because the bust potential of so many of these guys is extreme.
And perfect for your Grizzlies in reality too.
Oh,
at the number 9 pick, Zach Kleiman's going to be able to find a player that he feels like can contribute on a rookie contract to a team that's already paying a bunch of stars. That's important. Like I think I've said this to you before, but just to reiterate it again, to me, this is a draft where if you don't have a direction, where if you don't have a centerpiece, you don't have necessarily a purpose with your franchise right now, like the Wizards, this draft is horrible. This draft is the worst possible to have.
But it's great if you got Wemby.
It's great if you got Victor. It's great if you have Ja Morant. It's great if you have Lauri Markkanen and Keontae George and like a bunch of good players for the Jazz at 10. It's great if you're the Rockets and you got a bunch of good young players already and you feel like you have a direction. It's even good if you're the Pistons and you got Cade Cunningham, because you're like, okay, how do we optimize Cade? We need shooting. Duh. So like, I think it's good for those types of teams. It's good for, the Heat at 15, the Sixers at 16. It's good for the Lakers or Pelicans at 17, whoever gets that pick. So I think this draft is good for a lot of different teams, but it's not so good for those teams that don't really have anything going for them right now.
Yeah, some interesting stuff certainly that came out of the combine, but we'll be talking a lot more about the draft as the weeks and months go. As
we will on the Ringers NBA Draft Show. I interviewed Alex Sarr. That podcast posted on Monday. Talked with Sarr for about 25 minutes, potential number 1 pick, and have some more interviews coming in the weeks to come. Going to be talking to Cody Williams from Colorado, talk to Devin Carter from Providence, one of your guys who you love. Talking with, hopefully soon, Modest Buzelis, another potential number 1 pick. Jaron McCain from Duke. Got a number of guys coming up that I'll be talking to.
I saw everybody's got Alex Sarr like number 1 in their mock drafts.
Yeah.
Alex Sarr sounds like the kind of guy that sucks. I feel bad saying that.
What do you mean? Why is that?
It's just the name.
It's like a generated name. It's just auto-generated.
Yeah, it just sounds like the kind of guy that's a bust. And I hate to hold that against him. I'm not saying the guy's going to be a bust. He just sounds like a bust. That sounds like a bust to me.
Well, okay.
Just the name Alex Sarr. It's like, the number 1 pick, Alex Sarr.
Do me a favor. No. This week, take 20, 25 minutes.
Oh, I've watched his highlights. But
listen to my conversation with him.
Okay, I will.
Because you've watched the highlights, you've watched the video. I'm just curious about your assessment. And this is also a question for the listeners too. Listen to my conversation with Sarr on the draft show. I'm curious what people think about him character-wise.
Okay.
Just with the conversation with him, his perspective on basketball. I'm just going to leave it there without offering the way I feel about it. Okay. But I'm just curious what listeners think, what you think, Chris Vernon.
I'm going to watch
about Sarr the person, because
or to listen to it rather.
I think that's pivotal in this year's class as well. You want to you're betting on a person, not just a player.
Well, and I really shouldn't hold that his name sounds like a bust against him.
I think Sarr's a cool last name.
No, it just sounds like Alex Sarr. It sounds like a kind of guy.
What about when that's his full name, Alexandra Sarr?
Yeah, that would have. I think no, that still sounds like a bust to me. It does.
How about Al Sarr?
I actually think Alexander's worse. I don't know.
How about Al Sarr? Al Sarr.
We're not there.
No, I like the last name. I think the last name's cool. Sarr.
Yeah, that's fine.
But my Boston accent comes out.
Alex Sa.
Too bad he couldn't go to the Celtics.
All right. Well, look, we're right in the middle of a lot of these series. Maybe we're going to get some. We're certainly going to get some game 6s. Maybe we'll get some game 7s out of this round of playoff games. Kevin, it is always a pleasure, and I will talk to you later this week.
Looking forward to it.